The marble floors of the Capitol glared under harsh fluorescent light. Security buzzed, metal detectors humming as staffers hurried past in pressed suits. Ava Morrison adjusted her blazer, ID badge glinting against the navy fabric. Senate Oversight Committee, senior advisor. She'd just landed from Atlanta and was due to brief the subcommittee on law enforcement reform. Her phone buzzed, meeting room 412, now. Then the shout, "Ma'am, step aside, this area's restricted." A uniformed officer cut across the hallway, tall, white, jaw clenched. His eyes flicked over her skin, not her badge. "I'm cleared," Ava said evenly, holding it up. He didn't look. "Back up, you people can't just walk through federal property." The phrase sliced through the air. Heads turned. A Senate aide froze mid-step, whispering to another, both pretending not to hear. Ava stood motionless. "You people." The officer stepped closer. "Ma'am, don't make this difficult." His hand brushed his holster. Not a threat, but a habit. The kind born of authority, gone unchallenged. A security camera blinked red above them. Ava's pulse hammered. She knew this floor, this system, this silence. "Officer," she said, voice steady now, "you're obstructing a Senate advisor on federal duty." He smirked. "Right. And I'm the president." A hush swallowed the corridor. Somewhere down the hall, a gavel struck wood. The subcommittee was in session. Ava exhaled, pulled her phone, and tapped record. "Then let's both keep receipts." The camera's red light mirrored the one above her. The officer's face stiffened. Just as a door opened behind him, and a familiar senator stepped out. "Ms. Morrison," he called. The officer turned, realizing too late. The corridor smelled faintly of polish and power, lemon oil, paper, ambition. Ava Morrison moved quickly, heels clicking against the marble, phone in hand. The meeting had shifted up 15 minutes. She didn't have time for interruptions. "Ma'am, stop right there." The voice came sharp, authoritative. Ava glanced up. Officer Rick Dalton, security detail. Hand lifted like a traffic signal. "I'm cleared," she said, flashing her badge. "Senate Oversight Committee." Dalton barely looked. "You can't pass this point without escort." "I'm late for a briefing. The senator's expecting me, then he can come get you." Murmurs rippled from staffers nearby. Ava's chest tightened. The tone, the posture, the small smirk of certainty. "Officer," she said, keeping her tone professional, "you're obstructing a federal employee on duty." He stepped forward, boots echoing. "Lady, don't make this a scene." "This is a scene," she said quietly, "because you're making it one." Dalton's eyes narrowed. "What's that supposed to mean? That you saw a black woman walking where you didn't think she belonged?" The air turned dense. A junior staffer coughed, pretending to read his phone. "Watch your tone," Dalton said. "You people." He caught himself too late. Ava inhaled once, finished that. He didn't. Instead, he gestured her backward. "Step aside before I call backup." "You won't need backup," came another voice, deep, controlled. Senator Reyes stood at the end of the hall, expression unreadable. "She is the backup. Ms. Morrison, we're waiting." Dalton froze, his face drained of color. Ava walked past him, shoulders straight, gaze unflinching. Their sleeves brushed. She could feel the heat of his embarrassment radiating. As she entered the conference room, her phone vibrated, a message from an unknown number. "We saw what happened. It's all on camera." Ava stared at the screen. Her reflection ghosted over the text. The system had watched, now it would have to answer. The complaint form was 12 pages long. Ava filled each line with precision, time, location, witness names, policy codes. Her handwriting stayed calm, even when her pulse did not. The HR officer across the desk, a young man with gelled hair and the nervous smile of someone trained to de-escalate, nodded as if her restraint was a courtesy. "Of course, Ms. Morrison," he said, "we'll conduct a full internal review. Officer Dalton has served this building for 15 years with distinction." "Then 15 years is long enough for someone to notice how he treats people," she cut in. He blinked, startled. "I just meant these things can get complicated. They're only complicated when people want to protect the wrong side." He didn't answer. His fingers hovered over the keyboard, hesitating before typing alleged incident. Ava watched him change. Officers shoved to physical contact. During verbal exchange, the soft corruption of language, she could feel it happening line by line. When she left the HR office, a woman from legal affairs caught up to her in the hall. "Ava," she whispered, glancing around, off the record, "be careful. People don't like when internal matters go public." Ava stopped walking. People like keeping things quiet. That's how he kept his job. The aide's eyes flickered with pity. It's not about right or wrong. It's about survival. Yours. That night, Ava sat at her kitchen table, laptop open. She pulled Dalton's file from the shared internal system, most of it redacted. But one line in a 2019 memo caught her eye. Prior complaint resolved informally. No detail. No name. Just a phrase that smelled of dust and denial. Her phone buzzed. Lena, journalist friend. He's had 3 complaints, the text read. 2 dismissed, 1 sealed. Want me to dig? Ava typed back. Not yet. I'll handle it through channels. Lena replied instantly. Channels are where truth goes to drown. Ava stared at that line for a long time. She wanted to believe the system she served could correct itself, that justice didn't require fire. The next morning, she was called to a follow-up meeting to ensure fairness to all parties. Dalton sat at the table, uniform crisp, jaw locked in professional indignation. HR positioned themselves like referees. Ms. Morrison, the officer began. I understand there was a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding, Ava repeated, voice flat. You pushed me in front of witnesses. His mouth twitched. I was securing the area. You said, you people. He shifted in his chair. If I did, it wasn't meant how it sounded. How else does it sound? HR jumped in. Let's keep this productive. We're here to find resolution, not blame. Ava folded her hands. Resolution is accountability. Silence. Pens stopped moving. Dalton stared at the table. The HR rep cleared his throat. We'll note your concerns. We'll circulate a written summary next week. When Ava left the room, she felt the temperature of the building change. Whispers, glances, doors closing half a second too late. Power didn't shout. It withdrew warmth. That afternoon, a senior staffer she respected called her in. Ava, he said softly, I admire your integrity, but these things have a way of staining careers. I'm not the one who should be stained. He sighed. Perception doesn't care about innocence. Be smart. Drop it. She walked out without replying. The corridor lights reflected on the marble like ripples, cold, distorted. Back in her office, she opened her notes and began drafting a memo directly to the committee chair. If the institution wanted to bury this, it would have to bury her with it, and she wasn't planning on going quietly. She ended the letter with one sentence. Deliberate and sharp. Silence is policy's oldest accomplice. She hit send. Within an hour, her access to the internal complaint system was revoked. The meeting wasn't on the official calendar. Ava found the door through a whisper. Conference C, Blueville 2, the kind of room used for quiet damage control, not policy reform. When she entered, the air was heavy with recycled coolness and the smell of burnt coffee. 3 senators sat around the oval table, faces half-lit by a muted television looping coverage of the incident. On the screen, headlines scrolled, Capitol officer under scrutiny after confrontation. The clip replayed in silence, her own stillness frozen mid-frame while Dalton's shove looked almost accidental without sound. Senator Reyes, her longtime mentor, motioned her to sit. Ava, this is informal. Off the record. She sat. Nothing about this is informal, sir. The footage is public. He leaned forward, voice measured. We can contain this. The press cycle moves fast. Internal Affairs will recommend retraining and retraining. Ava's tone cut through him. He pushed a federal employee and used racist language on camera. Reyes's eyes hardened. I'm aware, but we must consider optics. The police union is already calling this a smear campaign. If we push too hard, we'll lose votes on the reform bill you helped draft. The word optics landed like ash in her mouth. So my dignity becomes a political variable. Your restraint is what gives us leverage, he said quietly. Don't confuse noise with progress. Another senator, older, leaned back and crossed his arms. This kind of story dies in 2 weeks if we let it. You've got a future here, Morrison. Don't waste it proving a point. Ava felt the room shrink. The hum of the air conditioner swallowed the silence. They weren't discussing justice. They were negotiating her compliance. She pushed her chair back. If the system can't face its own reflection, it doesn't deserve reform. Reyes's tone turned colder. Be careful how you frame this. There's a difference between being principled and being political suicide. Ava met his gaze. I'll risk the latter. She left the room before anyone could stop her. The television behind her replayed the clip again without audio, without meaning, just 2 bodies crossing paths, one uniformed, one silent. Outside, the hallways buzzed with gossip. Her name had become a current, whispered between aides and policy interns. She could feel the isolation tightening, invisible but deliberate. In her office, she found an email waiting, reassignment notice, temporary suspension pending review. Her password access was already blocked. She stared at the screen. No warning, no explanation. Just system language, cold, procedural, final. Her phone buzzed. Lena, again. Still sure, you don't want me to leak the footage. It's trending in activist circles already. Ava typed, paused, then deleted. Her reflection on the darkened screen looked steadier than she felt. Not yet. She finally sent, I'll go through hearings first. I want them exposed in daylight, Lena replied. Daylight's expensive when the powerful control the blinds. Ava closed her laptop. She looked around her office, framed degrees, Senate lanyard, her father's old photo from the Civil Rights Museum in Birmingham. Every inch of it represented a belief that systems could be changed from within, but the walls felt smaller now, the air heavier. When she stepped outside that evening, the Capitol dome glowed gold against the fading sky. The same light that sanctified power also hid its cracks. She whispered to herself, if they won't open the door, I'll build a window. Inside, behind her, the senators' meeting continued, and a staffer was already drafting a press statement. The committee remains committed to fairness for all parties involved. No mention of her name, no mention of the shove. Just fairness, that hollow word. By Monday, Ava's name had become a liability. The Senate's internal email thread carried it like contagion, always in passive phrasing, given the Morrison situation, or until the Morrison matter resolves. Meetings she once led were quietly reassigned. Invitations stopped. Silence moved faster than rumor. She arrived at work to find her office keycard blinking red. Security had forgotten to update access. The guard at the checkpoint, a man she'd greeted for years, now looked through her instead of at her. Inside the building, every smile was thin, professional, and terrified of contact. Colleagues passed her in hallways with polite nods that vanished the moment she turned. Her assistant, Tasha, closed the door behind her. They're freezing you out, I noticed. They moved your seat at the committee briefing, from the table to the gallery. Tasha hesitated. To the hallway, they said limited capacity. Ava exhaled slowly. Efficient racism with scheduling software. Tasha glanced at the window, voice low. You should know, Officer Dalton's union lawyer was on Capitol Watch Live last night. Said you misinterpreted standard procedure. They called you combative under stress. The words landed like ice. They turned my composure into a flaw. They're rewriting the story before you can tell it. Ava looked down at her hands, steady, deliberate. Then we write louder. That afternoon, she found her mentor, Senator Reyes, in his office. He didn't stand when she entered. Ava, he said, voice clipped. You're not making this easier. On who? On the committee. The optics have gotten worse. The unions are framing this as an attack on law enforcement. The chair wants to de-escalate before hearings begin. De-escalate means what? Pretend it didn't happen. He rubbed his temples. You're becoming a symbol, and symbols are dangerous when the story isn't under control. She met his eyes. You're afraid of me because I didn't disappear. I'm trying to protect your career. You're protecting your comfort. For a moment, his mask cracked. You think you can change this system alone? No, she said, but I can make it look at itself. The silence stretched. Then, almost softly, he said, you don't understand how many people want to see you fail. Ava turned toward the door. Then they're going to be disappointed. She walked out before his sigh could become another apology dressed as advice. That evening, her inbox flooded. Subject lines read public response needed, clarification statement, draft. All carefully worded attempts to dilute what happened. PR templates that called her a respected advisor navigating a sensitive misunderstanding. She deleted each one. Her phone buzzed. Lena again. They're going to smear you. One outlet's digging into your divorce records. Ava didn't flinch. Let them. I'm not the story. The footage is. You sure? Because they're making you the villain who ruined a man's life. Then I'll make them show the man's behavior. Later that night, she sat with Tasha over takeout boxes, the city's glow spilling through the window. You could still step back, Tasha said. Nobody would blame you. Ava looked out at the Capitol dome, haloed in artificial light. My father used to say, they'll always call your courage aggression. I didn't understand it until this week. Doesn't it scare you? Of course it does, she said softly. But silence scares me more. Tasha didn't respond. She didn't need to. Ava's phone buzzed again. A message from an anonymous source. Dalton isn't suspended. They reassigned him to external security detail, East Wing parking entrance. Her pulse steadied. Of course they did. Reassignment, the bureaucratic synonym for impunity. She opened her notebook and began writing names, not of enemies, but enablers. Every signature that approved, every silence that followed. She wrote until her pen pressed grooves into the paper, until anger turned into method. When she finally looked up, the clock read 2:47 a.m. The city outside was still unrepentant. She whispered into the dark, "They think freezing me out will keep me quiet." A pause, then she added, almost like a promise, "They've mistaken the silence for surrender." It began as a whisper on the internet, a 30-second clip without context, posted anonymously on a Sunday morning. By noon, it had 400,000 views. By evening, it was on every major network. The video opened mid-argument, Ava standing calm, badge raised, Officer Dalton blocking her path, his words barely audible, "You people can't just walk through federal property." Then the shove, a half-second of motion that rippled like proof through an entire country starving for it. Ava didn't post it. She didn't need to. Someone in that marble hallway had hit record, and now the whole nation was watching. She sat in her apartment, the blue light from the screen flickering across her face. The news anchor's voice was steady, sanitized. A Capitol security officer is under investigation after a video surfaced appearing to show racially biased conduct toward Senate staffer. Appearing to show, even truth required a qualifier. Her phone erupted. Texts, calls, emails, statements, denials. Her own name trended by nightfall. Hashtag Ava Morrison. Lena called. "You're viral. I didn't leak it. I know, but whoever did just changed the game. They can't bury you now." Ava muted the television. "They'll try anyway. They'll paint you angry, arrogant, dangerous. They'll remind everyone you're a black woman with an opinion in a building built to silence them. And they'll think I should be grateful it wasn't. Worse, a pause. You still want me off it?" "Yes, you sure?" Ava's tone hardened. "I won't let them say I weaponized this. The facts will speak for themselves." But the facts didn't speak. People did. By Monday morning, her inbox split like fault lines. One half praise, one half venom. Strangers calling her brave, others calling her divisive. "Thank you for standing up," lived beside. "Go back where you came from." Tasha met her at the Senate entrance, phone in hand. "They've set up barricades, media's camping outside." Ava pulled her ID from her bag. "I still work here." Inside, the tension was physical. The committee floor buzzed with avoidance. Colleagues whispered in corners, eyes darting. Senator Reyes approached, face grave. "You should have come to me before this blew up," he said quietly. "I didn't make it blow up. It doesn't matter. Now you're a political liability. I'm a witness." He exhaled. "Witnesses don't survive politics, Ava." She met his gaze. "Neither do cowards." He looked away first. That afternoon, a press statement dropped. "The Senate Oversight Committee is reviewing an incident involving one of its advisors. We urge the public to withhold judgment until internal findings are complete." Ava read it twice. No mention of the shove. No mention of slur. Just incident. Dalton's lawyer held a press conference outside the Capitol steps. Cameras flashed. "My client has served honorably for over a decade. He deeply regrets any misunderstanding." The video circulating online has been selectively edited to inflame tensions. The word misunderstanding again, the shield of every abuser wrapped in bureaucracy. By nightfall, networks replayed his apology looped with split screens, his uniform on one side, Ava's still frame on the other. Commentators dissected posture, tone, intent. Ava didn't cry. She couldn't afford the indulgence. Instead, she wrote, drafting her testimony for the public hearing scheduled 3 days later. Her words were sharp, deliberate. "What happened to me isn't a misunderstanding. It's the system operating exactly as designed, until someone records it." She stopped typing only when she saw her reflection in the laptop screen, eyes rimmed with exhaustion, posture unbroken. The next morning, she walked through the same corridor where it began. Cameras lined the hall now. A new guard checked IDs, overly polite, almost apologetic. Dalton's post was empty. Tasha whispered, "You realize this video's going to define everything?" Ava's reply was quiet but certain. "Then, it better define it, right?" When she reached her office, there was an envelope on her desk. No name, just the Capitol insignia. Inside, a single sheet of paper. "You're being summoned to testify at the Senate Oversight hearing regarding the conduct of Officer Rick Dalton. Date, Wednesday, 10 a.m. Ava folded the paper neatly, slid it into her notebook. She didn't smile, but for the first time since the shove, her pulse steadied. That night, she walked the Capitol steps under the orange glow of the air smelled of rain and something raw, change. From behind her, a voice murmured, "They'll come for you now." She turned. Lena stood at the bottom of the stairs, coat collar up, expression solemn. "I know," Ava said, "and let them." Lightning split the sky, briefly turning the dome white. Ava stood beneath it, not defiant, just unmovable. The world had seen the truth. Now it would have to decide what to do with it. The chamber was designed for control: high ceilings, muted carpets, polished microphones that caught every syllable but none of the emotion. Cameras lined the back wall like eyes waiting for weakness. Ava Morrison sat at the witness table, her nameplate gleaming under fluorescent light. Across from her, the senators formed a semicircle, equal parts authority and performance. Rick Dalton sat 3 rows behind, his uniform crisp, jaw locked, eyes fixed on the floor. The gavel struck. Order. This hearing will address the incident between Officer Dalton and Senate Advisor Ava Morrison. Incident, the word again. Ava could almost taste the neutrality. That sterile politeness, that insulated power from guilt. The committee chair leaned forward. "Ms. Morrison, you may begin." Her notes were brief, not because she had little to say, but because truth didn't require embellishment. She adjusted the microphone, her voice steady. 3 weeks ago, while entering this building to perform my duties as senior advisor, I was stopped, questioned, and physically pushed by Officer Dalton despite displaying federal credentials. His justification was that I didn't look like someone authorized to be there. A few senators shifted in their seats. The words didn't look like landed exactly where she intended them to. Ava continued. "The footage you've all seen is not unique. It's a symptom. What happened to me is what happens to Black Americans every day, except most don't have cameras, or titles, or microphones to make you listen." The chair cleared his throat. "Ms. Morrison, are you suggesting the Capitol Police acted with racial bias?" "I'm not suggesting," she said. "I'm describing." A hum moved through the room. Dalton's lawyer stood. "With all due respect, my client has expressed remorse. He never intended harm. We mustn't allow emotion to override due process." Ava looked directly at Dalton for the first time. "He intended control. That's harm disguised as duty." Dalton's jaw twitched. "Ma'am, I was following protocol," she cut in. "Then the protocol's the problem." The chair banged the gavel. "Order." The exchange hung in the air, the kind that would loop endlessly on news. Cannelsa, senator from the opposition, leaned into his mic. "Ms. Morrison, you've worked closely with law enforcement agencies. Would you say this was a misunderstanding amplified by public perception?" Ava's eyes hardened. If it were a misunderstanding, it wouldn't need amplification. The room stilled. Cameras zoomed closer. She went on, voice quieter now, but sharper. "Every institution has a reflex to protect itself, not its people. The only reason I'm sitting here is because someone pressed record. Without that footage, I'd still be explaining why I felt unsafe, instead of proving it." Reyes, seated at the far end, met her gaze for a fleeting second. Pride flickered beneath shame. The chair sighed, fingers steepled. "And what outcome would you like to see, Ms. Morrison?" Ava didn't look at her notes. "Accountability that doesn't require public outrage to exist. Discipline that doesn't need headlines to happen. Policy that protects before it apologizes." A ripple of murmurs spread through the chamber. The chair tried to recover control. "Noted for the record." Dalton's lawyer whispered something to him. The officer stood abruptly. "For the record, I've already apologized. I didn't know who she was." Ava's response was instantaneous. "That's exactly the point." The silence that followed was total, the kind that rearranges air. The chair glanced at the cameras, then at Dalton. "Officer, please sit down." Dalton hesitated, then obeyed. The crack in his authority was visible now, small, but irreversible. After 3 hours of testimony, procedural questions, and carefully crafted outrage, the hearing adjourned. Reporters swarmed the exit. "Ava, Ms. Morrison, do you feel vindicated? Do you think this changes anything?" She paused on the steps outside, light flashing, microphones pushing forward. "This isn't vindication," she said. "It's documentation." Then she turned and walked away. Later, alone in her apartment, the replay looped on her TV, her own face frozen mid-sentence. her words dissected by commentators who hadn't been there. Poised, composed, articulate, praise, wrapped in condescension. Tasha texted, "You made them listen, even if they pretend they didn't." Ava looked at the city skyline, cold, steady, indifferent. She whispered to no one. Listening isn't change. In the reflection of the window, she could see the red light of the Capitol dome, still burning, still blind. Morning light scraped through the blinds, sharp, deliberate, like it had something to prove. Ava hadn't slept. The hearing played on every network, her name trending, her inbox flooded. Praise, hate, solidarity, threats, all indistinguishable in volume. Reyes was the first to arrive. No words, just a paper cup of black coffee placed beside her laptop. "You did what they never do," he said. "You made them name it." Ava didn't look up. "They'll rename it before they fix it," he exhaled. "There's talk of administrative leave for Dalton, internal review, maybe public apology, paper shields," Ava said. "They'll wait till the noise dies down, then file it away." Reyes nodded. He knew she was right. "You're still on the governor's calendar. She wants you to brief her directly. Today." Ava closed her laptop. "Good. Let's make this official." The governor's office was quiet, that curated silence of political spaces where consequence is rehearsed. Governor Hayes stood by the window, expression unreadable. "Ava," she began. That was compelling testimony. Ava recognized the pause, the hesitation between admiration and damage control. "I didn't testify to impress," she said. Hayes turned. "No. But you did ignite a conversation that's now burning through every news cycle. You've got public sentiment, and that's leverage. We can use that to push reform if we move carefully." Ava stepped closer. "Careful is what built this mess. I want structural correction, not symbolic empathy." Hayes studied her, the blunt certainty, the refusal to flinch. "You're asking for a war." Ava's reply was surgical. "Then stop calling it progress." The room went still. Hayes finally nodded. "You'll have my support. Draft the proposal, but understand, the resistance won't be polite." "Neither am I," Ava said, and walked out. Dalton's world was shrinking. The same press that once called him model officer now dissected every frame of his face from that hallway footage. The statement he'd rehearsed with his lawyer sounded hollow even to him. He sat in his car outside the precinct, gripping the steering wheel until his knuckles whitened. Every apology he'd crafted died in his throat. The uniform felt heavier now, not as armor, but as evidence. When he finally stepped inside, the stares told him what HR wouldn't. He was radioactive. Sergeant Mills, older, worn, looked up from his desk. "You should have stayed quiet," Dalton muttered. "I did what we're trained to do." Mills shook his head. "That's the problem, son." By noon, Ava's reform draft was ready. 3 parts. Mandatory bias audits for all enforcement agencies. Civilian oversight board with disciplinary authority. Public transparency mandates. Footage, complaints, resolutions. She sent it to Hayes's office with a single line. "If it's watered down, I walk," Tasha called minutes later. "They'll fight this. I expect them to," Ava said. "Just don't let them make you the story instead of the issue." "They already did, so I'll rewrite it." Evening descended heavy. Outside the Capitol, protesters gathered, signs lifted, chants rhythmic. "We see you, Ava." End systemic cover. The air pulsed with defiance. Reyes found her standing by the window, watching the crowd. "They're out there for you," he said. "No," she replied. "They're out there because they're tired of needing someone like me to prove what they live." He leaned beside her. "Dalton's suspended. Internal affairs confirmed." She didn't react. Suspension isn't justice. It's delay. Reyes studied her profile. Resolute, distant. "You ever rest, Morrison. Rest is for resolution," she said. "We're nowhere near it." Dalton, alone in his apartment, watched the same protest on TV. A chant repeated his victim's name, Ava Morrison, as if carved into the rhythm of the city. He turned off the volume but couldn't mute the echo. His reflection in the darkened screen looked foreign, a man stripped of certainty. His phone buzzed. "Statement tomorrow. You'll apologize formally. Stick to the script." He deleted the message, stared at his badge on the table, then said aloud, almost to himself, "The script's the problem." At midnight, Ava sat at her desk, finalizing a report for the governor's press team. Her phone vibrated again, this time a message from an unknown number. "You don't belong here." No punctuation, no name, just that line. She stared at it, then typed back without hesitation. "I do now." She locked the screen, turned off the lights, and opened the window. The city's noise rushed in, sirens, chants, the hum of restless change. Morning headlines framed her differently now. Advisor Ava Morrison pushes bold justice reform bill. Capitol confrontation sparks national review. Officer suspended pending investigation. But beneath every headline, the same question pulsed. Would anything actually change? Ava read none of it. She was already writing the next phase, a reform clause addressing recruitment standards, mentorship, psychological screening. Reyes entered quietly. You've started a movement, Ava. No, she said. I've started accountability. He gave a half smile. There's a difference. Yes, she said. Movements fade, systems endure. Outside, protest chants grew louder, her name now a rhythm, her words reshaping into slogans. She closed her laptop and whispered, almost to herself, they finally see me. Now I'll make sure they see everyone else. The Capitol hearing room was overflowing. Cameras, reporters, restless murmurs swelling like static. On every screen across the country, a banner rolled. Senate committee confronts systemic bias in law enforcement. At the center of the table sat Ava Morrison, no longer just a consultant or witness, but chairwoman Pruthing, standing in for the absent senator she once advised. Her appointment had been fast-tracked overnight after the governor's public endorsement. The same institution that once ignored her now demanded her voice. Her hand trembled once on the microphone switch before she steadied it. This hearing will come to order. Her voice, firm and measured, sliced through the noise. Dalton sat 2 rows behind the defense counsel table, in civilian clothes, pale and shrunken under the fluorescent light. Cameras zoomed on his face. His attorney whispered instructions, but he wasn't listening. Ava read from her notes, the same report she'd drafted in the quiet fury of her apartment days earlier. This is not about one officer, one incident, or one recording. It's about an institution that rewards silence over correction. Dalton's eyes flicked up. That sentence was aimed at him. But not only him. The failure, Ava continued, is systemic. It's procedural. It's generational. And accountability is not punishment, it's repair. Whispers rippled through the audience. An aide leaned over, whispering to Ava, "Ma'am, the press is asking if you'll name the department directly." She didn't hesitate. Yes, because euphemisms protect the guilty. The reporters exploded in flashes. Ava didn't blink. Governor Hayes, seated behind her, exchanged a look with Senator Rourke. The political cost of this moment was enormous. But neither spoke. Ava turned toward Dalton. "Officer Dalton, you'll have your chance to speak." He rose slowly, hands shaking as he adjusted the mic. He started, voice catching. "I didn't think," I reacted. "I thought she was someone else. I thought you thought I didn't belong here," Ava said, cutting cleanly through his sentence. The silence that followed was surgical, a cut that exposed truth without needing dissection. Dalton swallowed. Yes, the word fell like a confession, small but seismic. Ava leaned back. "And that's the point. You didn't think I belonged, because you've been taught who does." Dalton couldn't look up. The cameras didn't blink afterward. The footage spread faster than any press release. Ava's calm dismantling of Dalton's defense, her insistence on structural reform, the raw moment when bias was admitted on record. Commentators called it a national reckoning. Others called it career suicide. Ava called it truth. Outside, the crowd was massive. Students, activists, citizens who'd once felt unseen. Placards read, "Accountability is policy. We belong here. Morrison Committee equals change." Ava exited the Capitol surrounded by aides, microphones thrust toward her face. "Ms. Morrison, will this end police bias? Are you running for office? Do you think Dalton's apology was sincere?" She paused at the top of the steps. Bias doesn't end with a bill or an apology. It ends when silence stops being safe. Then she kept walking. That night, in a quiet hotel room overlooking D.C., Ava sat by the window, heels off, hair down. Exhaustion setting deep into her bones. The city lights shimmered on her glass, like distant applause. Reyes called. "You did it." "No," she said. "I started it." He chuckled. "Semantics, reality," she corrected. "One hearing doesn't rebuild trust, but it opens the door." Reyes went quiet. "And you're walking through it, aren't you?" Ava didn't answer. She didn't need to. The silence said everything, the cost, the conviction, the clarity. Dalton sat alone in a rented apartment across town. His resignation letter lay unsigned. The department had offered a quiet exit, in exchange for cooperation. He stared at his badge one last time before slipping it into an envelope. He didn't send it. Instead, he picked up his phone, opened the public live stream replay, and watched Ava's face as she dismantled him, not with rage, but with precision. Something inside him cracked, not guilt, recognition. For the first time, he saw what she had seen all along. The next morning, Ava returned to her office. The air was heavy with aftermath, reporters waiting, aides whispering, security doubled. A single envelope lay on her desk, no sender, no return address, inside Dalton's badge and a note. You were right. I didn't see you. I see now. No signature. Just that. Ava held the badge for a long moment, the cold metal pressing into her palm, the weight of power. Finally, stripped bare, Reyes entered quietly. What's that? Proof that systems break before they bend, she said. He nodded, and when they bend, they become something new. She placed the badge in her drawer, closed it, and turned to the window. Outside, the city pulsed a hum of protest, progress, defiance. Nothing was clean, nothing resolved, but something had shifted. Ava whispered, "Let it burn through what needs burning." Epilogue. Brief close. Within word count. Weeks later, a new act passed through committee. The Federal Accountability and Integrity in Policing Reform Bill. Ava's language, word for word. Dalton's name faded from headlines. Ava's did not. She stood once more at the Capitol steps, coat drawn tight against the wind. Cameras flashed again, but this time, she didn't look at them. She looked past them, at the horizon, at what was still unfinished, at what still demanded her. Because victory wasn't applause, it was endurance. In Ava Morrison endured. It had been 6 weeks since the hearing, and the noise had thinned. Outrage replaced by analysis, hashtags replaced by headlines, headlines replaced by silence. That's how it always went. But Ava Morrison had learned to work inside silence. It was where systems tried to reset, and where she planted the next rupture. She sat inside the committee's new office, smaller, plainer, but alive with purpose. A corkboard covered the wall behind her, filled with case files, complaints ignored, disciplinary reports buried, whistleblowers silenced. Each file had a colored tag, green for active, red for dismissed, yellow for pending. Red still outnumbered green 3-1. Reyes entered carrying 2 coffees, weary but alert. "Press wants another interview," he said. "Decline, they'll say, you're hiding. Good, let them guess while I build." He set a folder on her desk. Public Review Board's first round of appointments. 3 lawyers, 1 social worker, 1 retired cop. Ava scanned the names. Replaced the retired cop. Optics. Optics, Reyes asked. Optics shape outcomes. He smiled slightly. "You've gone full strategist." "No," she said. "Full realist." At the precinct, the shift room buzzed around a mounted TV playing news coverage of the new civilian board. Officers muttered under their breath. "Great, another witch hunt," one said. "Maybe stop giving them witches," another replied. The laughter was uneasy. Dalton wasn't there. His desk had been cleared, the locker with his nameplate empty, stripped, locked, yet his story hung over them all, invisible but present. Mills, the older sergeant, switched off the TV. "You don't have to like it," he told the room. "You just have to live in the world you made." No one answered. Ava single quotes advanced through committee markup, bureaucratic trench warfare, word edits, funding debates, procedural traps, but Ava didn't flinch. Every clause that survived was another small permanence. During one late-night review session, Governor Hayes joined her, unannounced. "You've managed to turn outrage into policy," Hayes said, standing in the doorway. "Not many people can." Ava didn't look up. "Outrage is short, policy endures." "Until the next outrage," Hayes said softly. Ava closed her folder. "Then we build again." Hayes studied her exhaustion, etched in every motion, yet an unbroken steadiness. "When this passes, you'll have choices. Federal appointment, maybe a run for office." Ava met her eyes. "I'm not here to be seen. I'm here to be heard, until they don't need my voice to hear the truth." Hayes nodded once and left. That weekend, Ava returned home the first time in months she'd stayed still long enough to notice her apartment. Dust mail stacked high. A photo on the mantel caught her attention. Her late father in uniform, not police, but postal service. The caption on the back in his handwriting, "Serve clean, speak steady." Her eyes lingered on the image. Then, she turned on the news. Dalton had been found teaching de-escalation workshops for rookie officers quietly. under a community reform grant. No press, no headlines, no redemption tour, just work. For a moment, Ava felt an emotion she didn't recognize. Not forgiveness, maybe continuity, the system adjusting around what had been broken. Just she switched off the screen, not ready for that kind of closure. Not yet. The following Monday, the first oversight hearing began under her committee's new jurisdiction. 5 new cases, 3 cities, same pattern, bias complaints ignored, review boards complicit. Ava presided at the head of the table. No theatrics, no speeches, just documentation. When one deputy attempted to dodge a question, Ava said, "You're under oath. Evade truth here, and the report writes itself." He sighed. "You ever stop? Stopping is how they win." Reyes left. The lights dimmed. Ava stood there a long time, city hum beneath her window. Then she whispered the same line that had carried her through everything, not for the cameras, not for the crowd, but for herself. "I belong here." The words weren't defiance anymore. They were declaration. And this time, the city seemed to answer back.